If you look at the last election in Britain, 80% of the voters voted for one of the two main parties. Totally different from what's happening in Europe, where there's fragmentation, and in France, the main parties have just fizzled away. I don't want to see that fragmentation in British politics, and the best way to avoid that is for Parliament to keep its side of the bargain. It made a contract with the people. It must fulfil that contract.
In order to do that, though, you have to get the EU back on board. And going back to the issue of the backstop, I mean, do you think this sunset clause that has been touted, do you think EU will get on board that?
Well, I think we need to explore all the possible ways. I mean, if you take it down to its most basic, we do not want there to be a hard border with Ireland, a Northern Ireland border. The Irish government don't want there to be a hard border. We've both signed up to it in the Good Friday Agreement. The problem at the moment is the mechanism that would guarantee that would potentially keep the UK locked into a customs union against its will. That's why we lost heavily in the House of Commons. It's surely possible for us to find a mechanism, given that we both want the same end point, to get there. That's what we have to explore.
And you've talked about the fact that you don't want to stay in the customs union because that wouldn't deliver on the result of the vote initially. But isn't it still a less bad outcome, if you will, than a no deal? Would you still prefer staying in the customs union over crashing out completely?
I don't think a customs union delivers what the people voted for. And ultimately, I go back to the instruction we were given by the voters. They want to leave the European Union.
Do they know the details of what it would look like?
If we're unable to have an independent trade policy, if we're unable to determine the countries that we make agreements with in the future, if we have to apply a European common external tariff, it's hugely restricting on what we can do. I can't see how you would get into, for example, a free trade agreement with the US, or how we could get global liberalisation of services through FTAs if we were unable to do that. So the price would be very high, and I think that the democratic pushback in the UK would also be very high.
Can you give us an idea of the progress you're making in trying to replicate the 40 agreements once the deadline hits here? Because I know you have been meeting with counterparts here in Davos. Have you been frustrated by the progress on this front?
Not really. I mean, we've been making good progress. And to understand that among the 37 or so agreements that we have, 5 of them make up 3/4 of that. So we're talking about 11.1% of total UK trade. The top 5 of those agreements make up 8 of that 11. Some countries are still saying to us they don't want to put the work in to making these preparations because they believe there will be a deal. My advice is that your businesses will never criticise you for being over-prepared, but they will certainly criticise you for being underprepared. Therefore, put in the extra work.
And if they are underprepared, can you give us a better idea of what the no-deal scenario looks like? Because it's often talked about, but when it comes to the actual tariffs you'll face on day one after the deadline, falling back into WTO rules, what does that actually mean?
Well, at the moment, all these agreements give us preferential access, and they deal not just with tariffs, but of course non-tariff barriers, which are the biggest impediments potentially to trade. And some countries say to us, well, we assume that there will be an agreement and we can look to our future trading relationship. My argument is any short-term disruption in some sectors in particular could be quite disruptive. So don't take the risk.
Had you known what you know today about the complications around the Irish border issue, would you still have backed the Leave campaign?
Yes. I backed it because I'm a constitutional leaver. To explain it to American voters, it's like having a court that has a higher authority than the Supreme Court that sits in Ottawa and tells the Supreme Court what to do. I don't imagine that going down very well with Americans. And as a UK citizen, I want to control the politicians and the judicial system under which I'm governed. I do not want it to belong to a foreign power, which I view has happened in the European Union. When I make that analogy to my American political counterparts, they say, yeah, absolutely, we would never accept that.
Hi, I'm Joanna Bersecci, and thank you for watching. You can check out more of our videos by clicking on the boxes on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more from CNBC International. Thank you for watching.